Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The #1 podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
All right, what's good? And welcome to another episode of Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens. I'm your host, Chunky, and today we're going to cover how we are surviving the pandemic as millennials. We are going to discuss the onset of COVID-19 and all the way to how we managed to survive by avoiding the virus by either playing it safe or taking calculated risks. Crack those knuckles, sip on that bourbon, or take a big inhale, if you know what I mean, because we're about to give you some noteworthy knowledge. Before we delve any further, if you aren't already a follower or perhaps tuning in for the first time and would like to learn more about the show, then definitely check us out on Instagram at Jerk Jollof Collard Greens Pod, where you can stay up to date on our latest offerings, announcements, and join the JJC community. As always, I'm going to introduce the members first. We got to only wear gray sweatpants to show my yams print, D Black.
That's dirty, bro. That's
Yeah.
dirty, bro.
Yeah. I'm disgusted.
You know what? I got some great yams. It is what it is. All right.
Okay.
I was in Georgia not too long ago, and I will say those yams are on point.
Oh my God.
Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to GA.
Next.
Shout out to yams.
Next, if those bottles ain't sparkling and popping, the party ain't starting. We got Francis.
Thank you. What's good, y'all? Where
Also,
the party at?
also, Mr. Always Strapped for a pickup game, Dre.
I was worried about where that was going. Always strapped. I was thinking of. I was still thinking about this yam conversation and worried there was some crossover there.
No, I'm
You
not,
wasn't with me
I'm
shooting in the gym.
I'm not Glenn by any means, so you don't ever have to worry about that.
Safe, brother. You safe.
Finally, if that edible is calculated, I ain't taking it. G Ransom.
You already know. Yeah, I don't even take my own edibles because golly, I don't know what the potency is, but you know what it is.
Hopefully the brownies are properly marked in the refrigerator from now on.
Bro,
Potent. Yeah, they are. They're stored in the freezer. I tuck them away, boy.
Glenn,
No more trips to the hospital.
Glenn,
What's up, friend?
I only ate after the one you sent me, bro. After the first one, I was so nervous. I barely took another bite of those, man.
Come on, man. You had a long weekend.
Yeah.
Take one tonight before sleep.
Almost died the first one. I was like, okay, maybe after the think
Just be careful.
this whole process, man.
All right, before we jump into the discussion, we'd like to dedicate this episode of Rep Your shout out to Latia's collection, Afrocentric and ethnic themed apparel and accessories for women, all handmade by Latia Melody. Available for purchase on Etsy at LatiaCollection.Etsy.com. You can also find her on Instagram at LatiasCollection. All right, that's it. But honestly, before we get into the discussion, we'd like to extend our well wishes to those that have been greatly impacted by or have lost friends, family members, or loved ones as a result of the spread of COVID and its variants. We hope you all continue to practice and utilize the COVID safety measures and guidelines provided by both your state, local, and federal governments. All right, let's get into it. Where were you when you first heard that COVID was legit, and what was your reaction?
Man,
Go ahead. Go.
I was in California helping, my lady celebrate her birthday. I took her out for her birthday to Cali to celebrate for the weekend. And that was in mid-March. And that's when Cali started to shut down. Like when I said, yo, it was just funny though, because all the dispensaries were full, but all the grocery stores were like empty, which is kind of crazy. That shows you the priorities out there, which I don't blame you, because if COVID ever hits again, I'm stocking up. But if it's that magnitude. But yeah, I was in Cali with the lady celebrating her birthday. Everything started to shut down. they started to, I think the curfew was then coming into effect. We luckily got out of there in time because flights were starting to get shut down, and it was just not a very pleasant experience at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was supposed to actually try to meet up with Glenn, and I was just like way too nervous. I didn't, it was something I was really taking seriously even back then, and I was just kind of worried in general. So I would say probably around that same time where I heard about it. It was already kind of seeing the shortages in the the grocery store. But yeah, by the time he got here, it was pretty much like I think he was like, oh, what mall do you want to go to? I was like, here's the mall here, but I don't even know if it's open. Like, it was just one of those things where it was just like so early where we just didn't know what the rule. No one was wearing masks at that time. It's really kind of crazy to think about like that time period where it wasn't there weren't any set guidelines on like if you should be wearing a mask, if you should not. There was it almost feels like that was like 10 years ago, even though that was only I wouldn't say like 18 months ago or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for me, it was really crazy because I was in the midst of planning my wedding. So then COVID kind of became a thing. So my parents actually flew to Nigeria at the time, and they almost got stuck back home. They actually had to get a separate flight because their flight got canceled. And in the US actually had to send a rescue flight to get some of the citizens back in Nigeria. So I was concerned for my parents at the time. But yeah, so for us, I was planning for my bachelor party. I had, all the guys already had this whole thing planned out. And I was, trying to figure my wedding out. And then COVID kind of happened and everything kind of went upside down after that. And we just was on survival mode and trying to figure things out. So that's kind of, one of the big impact COVID had for my wife and I and my family too, because my parents kind of went through their issue back home. So
yeah, and for me, I guess it's a little bit more of a complicated answer, but just to be more direct on it. For me, like, I guess socially, I was kind of more aware of it when we started having a lot more restrictions on like where we can travel to, where we can go, who can travel to us. We started seeing a surge in hospitals, respiratory, issues. Businesses started kind of getting nervous. Everybody kind of started getting nervous. It was kind of perpetuated that maybe sometimes it wasn't that serious, and it was a lot of confusion even within our healthcare structure as well. So yeah, when I started seeing like an uptake in like hospital admissions and stuff like that for like respiratory issues, then it started becoming like really apparent that COVID was a real thing, and and then of course the consequences that are associated with it were also very real.
Cool.
yeah, it was pretty crazy because I didn't think it was nothing serious as well, because all the news outlet everybody was confused. They know what was going on and the impact of it. Initially we were saying, I remember when because we were like, obviously I just said we were planning for our wedding and we were trying to figure things out. And the messaging was, okay, it might be a 3-day shutdown so we can get the hospital under control. So like for us, I was like, okay, cool. I think we can see what happens, 30 days, then you kind of see how the number just kind of escalate, just keep increasing and just skyrocketing, and just kind of you see, okay, this is no longer a joke. We are in a pandemic, at that early stage, and you see the conversation just keep shifting from, or maybe let's wait another 30 days. We're going to keep things locked down for another 30 days. I was like, oh man. So for my wife and I, my family, we had to start thinking, what is our second plan? So we had to like cancel our wedding and try and reschedule and all of that stuff. So we canceled our bachelor party. We tried to do it twice and that didn't work out so well. But yeah, it was tough though, trying to get through that first 6 months.
Yeah, so I was near the epicenter when it first happened, so it was interesting to hear what was going on and the reaction that was out there. It was pretty tough. The biggest thing that we were looking at is just like, all right, cool. Like, do we have enough food in the house? What's going to be the turnaround? What's going to shut down? Where can we go and not go? Like, what are the precautions to be taken? Like, what do we do at this point? We didn't freak out. We were just like, okay, well, what's going to be the verdict? And then that's when the teleworking started. And it was interesting to start teleworking because I've never done it before. So it's just like, all right, I got to figure out how to set up an office. I got to figure out how to like work from home and not drift off and go play video games when I should be monitoring emails. So it was a different atmosphere and environment. And, you know, it's interesting to see how serious the virus is because it was at first downplayed to us and then it became a huge scare for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. So with that being said, it's been a while. So do you think it's time for things to go back to normal? Why or why not?
So I'll just kind of jump in. So normal, I guess, and I know it's kind of air quotes around the word normal, but I think, you know, I mean, normal is unfortunately or fortunately, it's an ever evolving thing. Right now, you know, it's kind of tough to say. It's like, I don't want to sound like that pessimistic dude in the room, but, you know, it is going to be, you know, something that somewhat of a normal, unfortunately, because of the fact that, you know, if I kind of always give the analogy of the flu. Mind you, there is a circulating flu. You know, it's seasonal. We do take preemptive measures. Obviously, it doesn't equate with COVID because it obviously doesn't have the same potency on our bodies. But you know, until there's a means of eradication or herd immunity, unfortunately, COVID is kind of like the new normal. So it's about mitigating it, managing it, and kind of working around it.
Yeah, just to echo that. Yeah, I don't. I am glad that you used the word normal because I think there are some new normals. You know, I think you know, even like joking with my wife, like, you know, when we travel, like we'll probably maybe we'll wear a mask more often, right? Even if stuff kind of dies down, right? Like you see other countries, you know, in China and Japan, you know, just it's part of their, you know, thing is that they're wearing masks and things like that. And it's like,
that's a great point.
You think about these things where, but to me, I don't think we are at any point of thinking about this as normal when I still see some of the numbers that I'm seeing, when I'm seeing reports of hospitals still being kind of overtaken with people who are dealing with it. So to me, I don't think we're anywhere near going back to normal, quote unquote, again, when you know, to D-Black's point, we're really nowhere near like herd immunity with, you know, a good amount of people being vaccinated and or kind of following best practice when it comes to wearing masks and those type of things. So still, I think we're still a little bit of ways for my liking to be thinking about back to normal.
Man, I guess my question is, I mean, what number of percentage of vaccination are we looking for to get back to normal? Because to my cousin's point, you know, I think, you know, this is the new norm and we have to find a way to adjust to it. You know, like COVID is going to be our new flu, and we have to learn how to, and the people who choose to get vaccinated will do it. You know, like flu, sometimes I'm not like an annual vaccinated for my flu, but I do it. You know, I do it more often than not. And I think COVID will kind of fall into that spectrum as well. So for me, you know, I think, you know, we can't keep like fighting the new norm, because I think we just have to learn how do we adjust to the new norm? I think that's really, for me, I think that's the question. Like, how do we adjust to the new norm? What are the new rules that we need to put in place to help mitigate, you know, the infection rates? You know, do we have to like engage more people to get vaccinated? I know there's a lot of states and counties who are implementing a lot of, like incentive for people to get vaccinated and encourage people to do that. So for me, like, it's like, so it's really more like, what are the action from a federal level or even to the local level? What action are we taking to help mitigate this and push us to more of the standard norm? For example, like my company, I know we're going to talk about going back to work. We kind of like forcing people, not forcing people, but we are moving forward to going back to the office, and that's, we are trying to move forward. And like to my cousin said, quote unquote, air quote, normal to this new norm that we all have to kind of get adjusted to.
So the one thing I actually want to just chime in. So just to answer the one question that my cousin was asking about. So right now, it's from the CDC, take it as you will, depending on how you perceive them, but 70% is what we need for herd immunity. I think right now we're at 48% at this moment that I
think
speak.
it's 53 fully dosed. It's 53%.
But that's
in the United States.
Yeah, for fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated. Yeah.
Correct. So obviously trying to close the gap of that, remaining 18% would probably help the case. But I think one thing is just that when I say the new norm is just like when you go out into the world, obviously, like you have certain provisions you have to take. You got to wear clothes. It's hot. You got to wear protect for the heat. I know this is not necessarily the best analogy comparing Mother Nature, comparing, hot weather to coronavirus. But my point is that you do have things that you have to do before you go into your place of work. Like there's PPE, personal protective equipment that people wear when they go into these hazardous environments. If you see, like, get used to people wearing face shields, get used to people wearing masks, get used to people going into the store wearing gloves. To Dre's point, in other countries, this is actually very common. When highly populated areas, you're bound to, have a higher chance of infections and communal infections. So, there's not anything new per se, but like we should have always been kind of, washing our hands, using hand sanitizer, protecting ourselves as we kind of move about the community. But, obviously with, the threat of coronavirus, it puts more perspective and more, more pressure on the need in order to make those daily provisions, making those, taking those daily steps to protect yourself and, also the places that you go and the people that you interact with. So, I think one thing, I know we're probably going to get to this point, but you kind of have to get out of that one person mindset because the actions you take do affect, your community, those around you. So.
A quick question. So how does so like the 53% is for full vaccinated folks. What is do you have the numbers for like maybe one dosage?
62%.
Like one.
It's higher.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are
63%. Yeah.
Okay. So we getting there, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I think like on my end, I feel like the idea of there being a normal, which was like back to what real life was like before COVID, that'll never happen, right? So it's just like to Dee's point, yeah, like even my employer as an example, they've implemented steps, they've implemented steps and tools necessary to monitor their employees' health and do the proper screening before we go in. So I feel like these things are going to become the new normal, until we get to the point where, there is the herd immunity factor that we can consider. So the normal is changed. It has changed. It is changing and will continue to change until we kind of get over the hump in this sense. But I do agree, like COVID is probably going to be something that we have to look out for annually, probably taking boosters annually. Now they're making like oral versions of the vaccine. They're making them probably going to make it more accessible. So probably something that you just pick up at the pharmacy, as opposed to having to, register, go online and do all those other things. So I just kind of feel like those things would be the new norm. I think it's like the main hurdles that probably preventing us from probably recovering faster was definitely like probably some of the politics behind vaccination, wearing a mask, like things like that. And I think we should just really monitor before we go back into this return to work. Like, can't just throw everyone back in and not expect there to be issues. So I think that's something we also have to monitor, maybe look at other countries that handle it better, considering that America has all these resources and infrastructure. But I mean, other than that, that's really my take on it. But other than that, just get the vaccine, y'all. Like, stop playing around. You know what I mean? Like, just get vaccinated.
Yeah. The other thing that scares me is just like how differently every state, I know we're called the United States, but everyone kind of does their own thing. I got to travel for the first time this week. I'm based in California. I went to Denver, Colorado, and I was just kind of like really thrown off with like all the stores had signs to say like, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. And it's not like that in California. Like, it's ran completely different here. Like, literally, it's just like if you go inside, you're wearing a mask. It's just kind of like the rule. So that's kind of like the difficulty is that, like, and I would assume even where you guys are at, there's probably different rules in place. So that's the thing that makes me worried. It's just like how different the rules are everywhere. And then even when you're hearing the vocal people in different, even counties outside of LA, there's people who are saying that wearing a mask is like infringing on their rights, right? So I think that's the thing that worries me is this, everyone is doing things differently. So how are we gonna all tackle this together if there's different rules everywhere? Like, it just seems wild to me that there's just not like a standard rule applied everywhere. And I know it's not that simple, but just in my head, it's just like, this is a problem. Why isn't there just like once, like, this is the rules? And I know the CDC puts down from, again, my very basic understanding of CDC proposes guidelines that people should follow. But it just seems so crazy to me that the rules are so different everywhere. It seems like maybe that's part of the problem why we're having such a hard time dealing with this as a country as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dre. And I just think that on the premise of, like, again, I know we live in a very complicated world. I mean, obviously you can't look at it from the perspective of a child because, as we are adults, the world is complicated. Everybody has different perspectives, religion, ethnicity, all of the above. But I still think that, in a general sense of being, regardless of where you're from, I think everyone is ultimately should aim to be the best human being they can be. And in being the best human being that you can be, that means being the best, that means taking in consideration your neighbors, taking in consideration your actions and how they impact those around you. I feel like if everyone just continues to kind of adhere to that premise, I think we should be fine. But
I mean, everyone can make their own choice. It's just anything that you do has a result, and be prepared to deal with that result. So we're not going to say this is what you have to do, but it may be in the best interest to encourage a better result to make a certain decision. But that decision's on you. There is no back to what it was in 2019 and prior. The advancement in technology, the advancement in medicine, the advancement of how we deal with each other in such separate places. There's no way possible we can go back to that quote unquote normalized interaction. So where we're at today is the stuff that we see on what those movies like Back to the Future or like any sci-fi movie that, that's not possible. We're not going to have these type of electric cars or this type of technology. And we do. Online interface has gotten way better because more money is dumped into it. So there is a new normal, and that's just to echo Glenn and to echo Dre. Like, we're not going to be where we used to be. We're actually progressing forward. Your views are your views on it. I don't take away from that. It's a free country. I would just once again reiterate, everything has a result to it. Just be prepared to manage that result when it happens. With that being said, have any of you just said fuck it and going out to party during the pandemic?
I'm just tired of this about?
I'm tired of sitting in the house. I'm gonna go out and do stuff.
I'll keep it short. No. I've definitely taken advantage. I'm the dad of the thing. I have been the most locked down. Like I said, the last time I flew was 18 months ago, and I only flew because basically my job basically needed me there for this in-person meeting. That's the only reason why I left. I still probably would have gone a little bit longer to fly. So I've been super ultra put me in a bubble, don't leave the house unless you really need to, or unless you're outside. So I've been super careful. So I've not had the fuck it in me at all, because I'm just super, just probably almost to a point where it's a little bit too nervous about it, to be honest with you. But just because some of the health stuff with my wife that I won't get into, just trying to be like as super careful as possible, I would say has been the biggest thing for me. So I haven't had that. I don't shame people who have. So I know there's at least one person who's really been out here in these streets. I know the two people who've really been out in these streets on this podcast. I'll have them kind of speak to themselves, but you guys know who you are. I know.
Just say my name.
Francis
say my name,
Dre. Francis has been out here in these
Dre.
streets. I know Glenn has probably been a little bit more, and I know D Black had to for
I've
work.
been out there. Yeah.
But I know Francis has probably been the most wild person spreading COVID out here. in the streets.
God.
Super spreader Francis over there.
Wow.
Shots fired.
So one thing that
Dre, do you?
I want to keep it light.
Dre, you know somebody who tested positive who's been around me? I didn't know. Did you know someone?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I know you've been out here state to state. I don't know.
So there's something interesting about this question too, because on a very surface level, it says party, right? But life doesn't stop because of COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, it's a complicated situation, because many places, like, obviously you close your business, so everybody wants to shut down. There's a lot of people that say, oh, we just shut down for a month, and everything shuts down for a month, and then COVID will be gone. But then there's a huge consequence on the other side of that, is like, well, what are we coming back to? The economy completely crashes and stuff like that. So I don't want to phrase it in a way of saying like there is one true way to kind of address the problem.
Yeah.
So
let's just focus on partying here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
why does it have to be
responsible?
I don't think it should be just about. I understand maybe the parties to make it of a lighter context, but partying. If we want to say just partying, then that's an elective action that, if obviously you're making a choice, you're making a conscious decision. Whatever comes with it, is what comes with it. No, but I'm just speaking on the premise of, obviously we still have to, work. We still have to accomplish what we need to kind of accomplish out here. And it's not always that simple to just say, I'm just gonna stay indoors all day.
Life, you still gotta live your life, man. For me, if you want to say party, that's a very subjective term, because is you hanging out with your cousin and his wife and maybe your parents, that's still getting together. And
so that's a get together, right?
That's still a get together, right? You may be partying, right? Quote unquote. That's still a party, right?
No. So a get together is different. So a get together is kind of like allowed in the sense that you like, if you're in a house with the people that you've been living with and y'all get together outside and do whatever, or that you normally engage with on a consistent basis, that's fine. But I'm talking about going out with people that you normally don't engage with all the time, that really shouldn't have been in your circle, or you expanded your circle. I'll put it like that.
Going to another state and going to a bar.
To be honest, during COVID, like my wife and I traveled. I did, but to be honest, every trip that I took, I was very, very anal about getting tested to make sure I was in, because I was cautious about, because one thing that that was really critical to me, that was very important, was I did not want to be a source of infection for somebody else. So there were events that I was supposed to go to, and I know I just traveled, that there was a group of us actually, real example, that they put together we need to go to a cabin, and my wife and I just we did travel on a plane, and we told them hey, this travel was unplanned, but we cannot go. But if we do end up going, we have to wait to get our test result back. And we ended up canceling because we didn't want to go to the cabin with some of our group of friends that we normally hang out with, and bring a potential infection to them. So that was really important to us. And we were very, very safe with the way we were. But one thing that I for sure did not have was the attitude of, I'm about to sit in the house and not do nothing. To be honest, I had a great time during COVID. Man, I enjoyed my trips. I had, my wife and I, we went to Yellowstone, we did a Teton, we did some hiking, went and visit some friends in whatever state they live in. So we took advantage of, the time that we had to be together at home. And we actually incorporate a lot of, we got to do a lot of things like that. So it was really cool. So I don't take it back at all.
So
you did it in a safe manner, though.
Responsible party. So
yeah, we tried to, but then when things opened up a little bit, did I go out especially when do we go to a bar and have food or have a couple of drinks? Yes, when things opened up, we did that as well, but we were very cautious how we did it and get tested when we came back. So that's how, yeah.
And I mean, I'll just say on my end, even though the very cheap flights were enticing, during the peak of COVID, for initially, I will say I'm an advocate for the vaccine now, but initially I was more like a little apprehensive towards it. I kind of wanted to wait it out, see how everything was going to develop, knowing that none of these were FDA approved. Some of it was also new technology as far as administering it to the public, all these emergency, uses. I just wanted to make sure, I'm always an advocate for health first. And, I know a lot of us is kind of embedded in our culture not to see doctors and get professional help. But my thing is when it comes to your health, be an advocate for it because, once your time is done, once your health goes down, your experiences go down. So me personally, I wasn't really out here. I had to cancel a whole trip to Europe because of COVID. And I just knew the hassle that I got trying to recoup some of that money and get my refunds. I wasn't beat for doing it again. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. Things develop a little bit more. And I avoided the parties. Plus, people were getting arrested for throwing parties. I remember there was even a point where some states were like, for Thanksgiving, you cannot have more than, X amount of people. Otherwise, you will be shut down. Like people all over were getting arrested for throwing these super spreader parties and stuff like that. And yeah, I wasn't beat for putting anyone at risk or myself. So,
so I mean, gotta be responsible. There's a result to anything that you do. You hit on a key point, which I want to ask to the panel. Are you vaccinated? If so, what made you get vaccinated? If not, why have you refused to get the vaccine?
How dare you ask me that question? It's like asking me my.
All right, next, size. Dre.
No, I'm just playing. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I'm respecting your decision.
No, I'm just joking. But it's seriously, I know. It's because, but the reason why I did that is because it is kind of approached. It feels like it's kind of like a new taboo. You can't talk about it or something.
I was gonna say you almost sounded like those NFL players, kind of not answering the question.
Yeah, they dodge. You see them, right? They dodging the question. Whoop, whoop.
It's like, dog, we know the answer. You not saying yes, I took it is you saying you didn't take it. Like, come on. Come on.
You know what? Hey, Molly, here's my thing. Again, America is freedom of choice. You have the right to choose what you want to choose. And I stand by, that decisions that the country, promotes. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to promote, what I feel is the best action. So yes, I am vaccinated. I think in a humanitarian perspective, it is best that everyone does get vaccinated. Obviously, it's not just helping you; it's helping your neighbor, and helping your neighbor to help you, vice versa. So that's all I have on it.
I mean, but you have a more scientific background, so you kind of understand the complexities of what goes on. Did that background help you make your decision?
That's actually a really good question. Yeah, for me personally, because of the fact that I have, but yeah, because I have a scientific background. I mean, I have worked with viruses for many years, so I'm very familiar with them. Even this, the COVID vaccine, the first one I think for Pfizer was actually a modified vaccine that was already in development. But with that being said, yes, it does help me because of the fact that I do have a little bit more information. I mean, I'm educated on the subject matter, so yes. But then it's funny because I'll have conversations with other doctors who are just like literally, I'm not a doctor. I have conversation with doctors, MDs, I should say, different types of doctors. But anyway, MDs, and then they'll basically be saying, some will say no, that they're not for the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I mean, even it's complicated because even amongst professionals, there's still some indecision. But I mean, again, I still think that it's best that everyone does get vaccinated. I mean, this is not our first incident in human population, in the history of being human. This is not the first time we've dealt with a global epidemic type situation. So, and we've addressed all of them through vaccination.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the proof is there, in my opinion. So,
yeah, for me, yes, I'm vaccinated. I definitely waited until it was my turn. So I tried to just also being like super responsible, boring old man, like not trying to jump the line, in
so
California.
you just look like an old woman and cut the line?
No, I mean, California had like these like forms where you could like go get the shot, and like literally all you had to do was just like say like, yeah, I'm overweight or I'm whatever. And like it was fairly easy to get the vaccine early. But I guess for my side, I was just trying to make sure I was being like as responsible of a person as possible and not making sure I'm getting the vaccine ahead of someone else who could have gotten it. So I got it like the first day it was like open to like the public for real. Like my wife was able to get it earlier because of some previous health issues she's had. So she was able to get it before I was. But yeah, to me, and maybe I'm just a little bit more believing of the government, but to me, I'm no scientist. So I wouldn't know where to begin to start researching things. I know I hear people say like, I need to see the research. And I'm just like, dog, like you're not, nothing you're going to find on your own. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. But I just didn't want to, there wasn't anything that I was going to find. To me, it was enough kind of people making the suggestion that this is something that we should do. And again, like previous ones where I need to be vaccinated for school or whatever, to me, I looked at it as no different. I would hope that as a country or as a medical thing that we would be able to do things faster than we've ever been able to do it before, right? So when I was hearing people say like, oh, they made this too fast, I'm like, well, we should be making things faster, right? We have all of this technology, ahead of us. And maybe just like the cynical side of me is like the government does not want people to die, right? Because they're more likely to like make more money from people. So to me, I didn't believe any of it. So to me, I'm just like they want as many people alive and working as possible. So in my head, I'm just like, the people who are responsible for determining if this is healthy or not are saying it is. So I just have to take them at that risk. A lot of those like Italy cases and things like that shit really scared me. So to me, all that's like before kind of COVID really hit big in the States, when I saw all those people dying in Italy or whatever, that kind of put the fear in me that like, this is something to be taken seriously. And as soon as the vaccine was made available, I knew that I was personally going to decide to take it.
Cool.
Yeah, just I guess I'll say something. Yeah, I feel like the vaccination topic is such a. I mean, I think when we were talking about personal questions, I think it is one of those topics. But so yeah, so I'm not gonna judge you for if you want to get vaccinated or not. But my preference is I would definitely recommend us to get vaccinated. So to answer the question, I am vaccinated. For me, the reason why I did it was, we were talking about traveling, because every time I travel, I do have this paranoia that was go through my mind, like, oh my God, I cannot go anywhere. I cannot see my parents. I cannot do anything until I get tested and make sure I'm good. And I can start going all this stuff. So I have to like go through that process every time. And so for me, that was enough incentive for me to make sure I get vaccinated when the vaccine was available for me to get it. And number two, and like looking at the numbers, and I was looking at it like, man, so many people are dying, even though I personally I was questioning, what is the true number? I wasn't sure if all of the numbers we were getting were truly COVID related. That was more of a personal thing, but still there was enough death ongoing that I was like, okay, what do we really have to lose? Like we need to do something and see what can help. So whatever we can do as a society, to help mitigate or even slow down the infection rate and the death toll that was ongoing across the world, we should be for it as a nation. And so for me, it was an easy decision for me when I actually did try to cut in line, but I wasn't technically cutting in line. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not Dre over here.
Let me call the Minnesota. Let me call the Minnesota officials, man. I feel like somebody cut the line.
Hey, you can do what? But like,
can we blank that part out?
Hey, no. But like the truth is, when I was going on a trip, I actually really wanted it, and there was and I didn't have to lie or anything because it was already open. It was already open for 18 to whatever, 18 plus. Gotcha. But to get it was hard. So I was like online trying to refresh my computer, trying to get it, and I was willing to even drive like up to 3 hours to get it because I had a trip coming up, and I was like, I'd rather take at least my first shot. So I know I'm somewhat protected. So when I come back, I can still get my test, make sure I'm negative or whatever. And I like, at least just from sanity check, really, that's what it was. But luckily I was able to get one like an hour away that I ended up taking. So that is what I took the extra step. I didn't wait for my doctor to call me like, hey, we ready for you. I did, there was some action that I took on my part to make sure I get that vaccination as soon as possible.
So yeah, I'm vaccinated. I made the selfless choice, knowing my family, and it's just like I don't want to be the one to bring it home, right? And I would never forgive myself for that. I've known people close to me that have passed away from COVID, and the first person that I found out, we didn't know it was COVID until things actually started happening and actually developed. So it was kind of a very unfortunate situation because it came out of nowhere. The second person I knew, it was pretty heartbreaking as well. So my thing was, I understood the result. I'll take the shot and I grow an extra limb, whatever. I mean, I've jumped in the Detroit River and I'm still fine. So that goes to that. But it's more of a choice and saying what's the best thing to do for humanity to stop the spread. I get my flu shot. So it wasn't any different from me saying, okay, cool, here's another shot that prevents the spread of another virus. So I took that as it was. Speaking of stopping the spreading, have you ever had to improvise a mask?
I guess I'll answer first. I never got to answer the last question, but
we skipped you?
Yeah.
I thought, my bad. No, go ahead. I thought you like answered
vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. I got the Moderna vaccine. I believe it was like in May or June.
Moderna gang.
Yeah, double dose.
Pfizer gang. Boop, boop.
And man. I just kind of want to definitely share the same sentiments as everyone else as far as the outlook for humanity and things like that. The only thing I wanted to add was just basically like, I think what made it, and me being the person I was a little apprehensive first. I was a skeptic about it, and just kind of knowing, the history of, this nation. And it wasn't until like I was talking to D, and he was just like, bro, like real talk, like that's nonsense. And I was just like putting things in perspective, and I'm like, yeah, the responsibility that I have here, being close to my family, the people that I love and appreciate. Yeah, like I second Chunky, I didn't want to be that person to bring, COVID and potentially bring the demise of the people I care about. And essentially, I also wanted to travel and still wanted to live responsibly. So I know the only way I could do that was by getting the vaccine. And I couldn't sit here and tell other people to get it if I didn't get it myself. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that really made it difficult was just the year 2020 period. It was just a very rough time with everything that was going on in society, and COVID coupled into it just made it even more difficult to really get a good gauge and understanding, who do we listen to? Is it the WHO? Is it the government? Is it the CDC? Do our state officials? Like, what's really going on? And everyone remembers like 2020 really opened up our eyes to a lot of things, and COVID just exacerbated it, just made everything worse. Mm-hmm. So, and let's be real, there's a lot of politics going on. So it just kind of stirred the pot, and not in a good direction. So even though, yes, there was a freedom of choice in a sense, but it kind of just stirred these two opposites, these two opposing sides. And we started playing with our own lives at that point. Mm. So, that's why I'm a big proponent. Like, I don't care about your choice. get vaccinated. That's your only choice.
Facts.
That sounds like the go vote, like the vote campaign, like the vote or die.
All right, Glenn. I know you got some type of what type of a mask improvisation have you needed to do, man?
Bro, I had bandanas, I had t-shirts, I was doubling up, I had everything, man. Like you name it. Only thing I haven't gone to the lengths of doing was like taking old bras and stuff like that, and old underwear and all that.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Oh, bro.
No, there's a thing about like the pad, like filters,
negligee and all that.
Yeah, I saw
You
that.
borrow one of your bras, bro. But yeah, that I once the mask. At first, all you needed was a face covering. It didn't really matter what it was. Like those, I think they were like the N95 masks were the thing to get at one point.
Yeah.
And then everybody, your local bodega was selling them for like $100 a box.
Yeah, and that was a mess. That was an
price
absolute
gouging. Yeah, so it was just like, yo, where do you get these masks? They started selling out. So at that point, it was just like, yo, just wear any cover you can find. But I haven't done anything crazy. I just wore like the bandanas. I bought like these baklavas or whatever from Amazon, looking real, cheeked up and everything. Cause I got the beard and all that. So it was just like, I just had to, anything I could find, I could put on my face. I put it on my face.
What was it like but I'll answer after you, but what about like getting used to it? Because I think it's funny because
we can loop back to that. Let me hear.
All right, then I'll just answer the question if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, so for me, have I ever improvised? Yes. Unfortunately, sometimes it's because there was no N95 available because people started going crazy for them and snatching them up and stuff. But I've definitely improvised masks. I think I don't know, everybody's probably done the shirt, pull your shirt over your face.
Yeah.
That's probably the one I've done the most, like in the very beginning when I didn't have any. I've actually seen, not me, just as a funny story, I saw this guy who was wearing a paintball mask. Wow. Like it was like a paintball mask. Like it's not what it's not going to do what you think it's going to do.
COVID's going to go right past.
Give him effort. Give him an A for effort.
Look, man, paintball won't go through. COVID won't go through.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Actually, probably even better than that one. There was another. Why is it always dudes? Why do we always do silly things? But there was another dude that he was wearing a bee net thing. I don't know if you've seen those things that the beekeepers wear, where there's like a hat and it goes over fish and everything. I was like, Mike, what are y'all doing? But I guess they're covering their face to some extent, right? So,
take what you can get, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But he's like, COVID's not hitting me in the face, and paintballs will not hit me in the face.
Double protection.
No, actually, I was trying to think. I think the couple times I've forgotten my max, I just went with it. I just like, you know what? I don't have it. Like at this point, what am I supposed to do? I just went along with what I was doing. Like I remember the first time I did it, I was taking my dog to daycare, and then I remember I got out of the car, took him out, and I went through the door, and I was about to get to the check-in, and I was like, shoot, I don't have my face mask. And I told her, and I was like, I apologize. And she just told me to just like, forget about it. And so I've had a couple occasions like that where like, when I remember, I just owned it, just went with it. But most of the time I usually have you have to, it's like, it becomes like an accessory. It's like, like wallet, face mask, then like your keys and chapsticks, right? Your car.
You run out the house, and you don't have no pants.
So like, you gotta have a couple of them in your car too as backups. So it's like, so I was able to. Those usually save me in those situations. So I didn't do anything crazy though, unless when I travel, my mom made me double up. So I usually do that when I travel, but usually I just use the cloth, one. We had some Ankara, like some African material were made out of stuff that I was using for a little bit. So nothing too crazy.
Side note, with the amount of like bedazzled masks,
Yeah.
it's absolute crazy. Every Nigerian, like they're making it out of like native material and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Matching the clothes, matching the gele. Like, that's the
Yeah,
hat.
Yeah, you gotta have the full fit, man.
That's
The
right,
mask has to be part of the fit now. The mask
It
has
is.
to be part of the fit
Gotta
now.
match.
Statement. It's a statement.
Oh man.
Dre?
No, I've pretty much always had a mask on me. Always, like some people joking around about carrying a gun with them at all time. I always had that thing on me.
He don't leave
Multiple
his house without
multiple
protection.
masks on me. But there was one time where I was helping my wife get the groceries in our apartment building, and I went downstairs and I didn't have a mask on, but I had like a Nike tech suit on that, so I was able to use like that as a mask temporarily, because our building at the time was really crazy about if you got caught without a mask, like there was trouble. So I like forgot about it. I couldn't turn around. But I would say that was probably the only time is I had like a hood, one of those Nike tech sweatsuits that like the zipper goes up really high to where you can kind of make it. I made a impromptu mask, but otherwise I always have them. We have them like on the keys right by the door when we leave the house.
Oh, that's
There's
smart.
multiple ones in the car. Like there's pretty much in my backpack. There's always a couple, so I'm always trying to be have the mask on me. Is better with it than without it.
Makes sense.
So did anybody buy one for the gym? Because I tried to get one. Did you get one that you could wear at the gym?
Yes, I actually
Yeah.
have one that's specifically for the gym.
Okay.
It has like this, like it allows air to flow inward, but it has like these little filters on it. It's not like M90, it's not an N95 level, but it does filter the air in and out. So
That's just more like a regular cloth mask that was breathable, because the first time I went in there and the mask I had wasn't breathable, I was like trying to suck air as hard as possible.
and that's what I'm saying.
I was like,
That's
this is
why I
bad.
invested in a fancy mask, because I'm not in here about to pass out.
I mean, my mask wasn't fancy. It was like maybe like $5 or $10, and it was just breathable in a sense. Like, okay, like everyone was already spaced out in the gym, so my concern wasn't spreading it. It was more so like, all right, if I'm doing this rep and I'm like getting exhausted, at least I can like freely breathe within my mask. And it's not like if I suck in, my mouth will shoot in my face, and I'm just like, yeah, doing this squat, I'm gonna pass out. These weights are just gonna crumple me.
Yeah.
I haven't.
So
No,
I did.
Hmm?
No, I was gonna say after that, I have one more question for you guys.
So for me, I've only wore one improvised mask. I was with one of my friends and I forgot it, and he made his own mask. I don't know what material it was, but like, bruh, it was horrible. It was embarrassing too. So I had to tie it around the back of my head, and the shit looked like this. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, what is this? If I can find a picture, I'll throw it in the group chat. But like, it was that one time I forgot it, and never again after that. I was like, I am not going to be embarrassed like this. This is straight trash.
So he went on Etsy trying to make a mask and then just absolutely bombed.
He failed. He
It's
failed.
the place to be, man. Bro, Kobe put Etsy on the map, bro. Real talk.
Oh man, what were you gonna say, Fran?
No, I was gonna say with COVID, did any of you guys think? I know some of you, Dre. I know you didn't leave the house, but did anybody else? Did you feel like you may have gotten COVID and you didn't know, or like how do you feel about
Like real talk, I was sick before COVID. I think COVID was spreading around because I worked for a time with these companies, so we always get the 411 on what's happening in China and Taiwan. And the first appearance was in China, I think in January, and then it extended to Taiwan. I think it wasn't like officially reported until February, and then March. I remember getting really sick before I went to California.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around that time that, everybody was kind of like, okay, was aware of it, but wasn't aware of the magnitude. Like, I don't think the first case in America was documented yet. So I was like, yo, not to be racist, but it was kind of like,
yeah.
Like what, did I catch it? Like, at the time it was the Kung Fu disease, the Wuhan, whatever. Not that I believed any of it or supported it, but it was just a lot of race inflated, rhetoric behind, what COVID was. But I remember getting really sick and I thought, maybe I have the antibodies. I don't know. But I ended up, getting tested, and that wasn't the case. It turned out I had like the regular flu or whatever. But other than that, I thought sometimes, and I remember going on flights. I was going on a flight before I got vaccinated to Nevada for business, and I was just I'm very risk averse, as everybody probably knows. And I remember like being on my P's and Q's. I had my sanitation wipes. I had my hand sanitizer. I was wiping down everything. I was putting out the elbows. Like, don't come near me. I said I was definitely about it.
Yeah, and Francis, I was going outside in the beginning.
Really?
So
You
yes,
left?
I was.
What?
Yeah, when had to get supplies, had to go to the grocery store every day to try to get some toilet paper, right? It was like a
Right.
it was like a
the
thing.
toilet paper shortage was
It
real.
was like
I'm-
a thing. I
I'm
felt
surprised.
I felt like I was like trying to like it was like a Jordan release. Like I'm gonna go to the grocery store. Maybe there's gonna be toilet paper there today.
They go to Downey
Yeah.
11s.
Yeah, I would say early on, before everyone was wearing masks, before that was like a thing where they were suggesting to wear it. Like I feel like every time I went out, I was just like super paranoid when I got back. Like if I started sniffling or if I coughed, I was like, shit, what if I got this now? You know what I mean? Just like, that whole like thing of just like being super paranoid, because early on I remember talking to my mom about it. And she's like, yeah, like maybe I'll wear a mask when I go to the grocery store. It was just like one of those things where as you're having conversations with people, right? Just the ignorance of it, of like, not wearing a mask, like, oh, maybe I will wear a mask today. Like maybe, that type of thing. But yeah, I would say
Maybe I'll put
early
on.
on,
Pants. Maybe I won't.
early on, I was always, and also like what was making me nervous is that the numbers in California were like spiking really bad, especially where I was at. So, there was reason for me to, so yeah, to me, it was like anytime I went on a mission, it was like, take off all my clothes, right? I was just doing like the craziest, like, routines as soon as I got in the house, like don't touch nothing. I'm like, my wife, like stay in the room. Like my wife was sick.
God.
My wife was sick. She was really sick. She was so sick. I was like worried. So I'm like, you stay in the room. I'm going to like put food out the door. I slept on the couch. Like I was so scared about, like, I thought she had it because she got seriously sick kind of before, but it wasn't that. It was just the flu. But yeah, there was multiple times where I thought either I had it or she had it. And I was only one WebMD search away from thinking that it was going to be the end of the road.
Oh my
for
God.
me.
Yeah.
It's kind of so one thing that's kind of crazy about it, like the whole like COVID situation. I mean, obviously, a lot of like the super spreaders will always be respiratory. So because they are respiratory viruses, they tend to have very similar symptoms. So that's like cough, sneeze. So it's just interesting how like, before COVID, if somebody sneezed, you'd be like, ew, like cover your nose, or if they didn't cover their face. Now, if somebody sneezes or cough, everybody looking at them like,
yeah,
you better not sneeze or cough again.
Bro.
Oh my God, I think he got COVID.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to make it funny, but I do think that it's just crazy how like everybody is like on high alert. If you sneeze, you cough, you must have COVID.
Yeah, and you can't tell anyone you're sick.
You better not.
God forbid.
So it's funny because like, I mean, so for me, even when even after being vaccinated, if I have a cold, I still like, now that the optics have changed as well, because you can't really sneeze public. So like for instance, like if I have to go visit a hospital or do anything like that, visit a clinic or anything, we have to get COVID tested in addition to being vaccinated. But if I know I have a cold, or if I'm like nasally a little bit, because actually when I wake up in the morning, I'm a slightly nasally person. So I don't like I'm in the mirror, like Pasta's always laughing at me, like me, la 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 la. Like I'm practicing my voice inflections because I'm not trying to sound like I'm sick when I know I'm going to be visiting a site soon or visiting a hospital soon. But if I do sound like that, or I do have a cold, I literally will cancel my trip.
I mean, you bring up an important point. So before this, people still go to work sick. Your employer expects you to show up to work sick, and sick time really wasn't as much as it needed to be. Yeah. Now, being that this happened, employers are just like, oh, well, stay home, which it should have been the case in the first place, because that's how you spread the common cold. That's how you would spread the flu. We're learning that work isn't as important as we thought it was before this point. Things will get done when they get done. Doesn't mean there's a reduction in efficiency, but it's better prioritization when it comes down to workloads. And I know you had like another question, which I wanted to get back to, was about the comfortability in wearing masks. D-Black, I know you wanted to ask that. So,
I mean, I never really. I guess we kind of already addressed it. I guess it was just like, with the different types of masks, the flexibility, to wear a mask. I feel like some of the guidances are just kind of, as Selassie was kind of mentioning, it's can be kind of mixed messages. I think I forgot the statistic too. I was literally just looking at it, like that the majority of individuals that are that wear masks are vaccinated people. So like,
that's funny.
So it's actually kind of crazy. So I just think it's very interesting. I mean, we say the comfortability with wearing a mask, but again, I feel like I'm going to be a broken record. But it really feels like the people that make that conscious effort to be humanitarians for everybody, they'll continue to do the same, even on the mask level.
Well, I actually, now that you said that, it made me have a question. So I had to fly for the first time. And that normally, anytime I've worn masks, it's literally been maybe a half an hour max that I've needed to wear it, right? Like basically like going somewhere, maybe in a building, have to wear it, and then I could take it off, that type of thing. But obviously being on a plane or airport, right, so I probably wore a mask for like 3 hours, was probably like the longest I've had to wear it. So I don't know if you guys have any recommendations on masks or whatever, but I know literally the mask that I had was probably not ideal. There was definitely some times where like I felt like I couldn't breathe like as freely or what. And I don't know if it was just like a mental thing because I wasn't used to wearing a mask for that long or what. But yeah, and any I know that you guys have been like flying quite a bit. So if you guys have any recommendations on masks to wear for flying, I'm all ears, because the masks that I had, I think were like perfect for like outdoor uses. I don't think it was like really meant to be like a
I just love this because it's like we're talking about like seasonal masks.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
like
a
your
thing,
seasonal
right?
jackets.
You want to be able to wear something that's comfortable, and you're not like trying to gasp for air. Like you're trying to be responsible, but at the same time, still take care of yourself. Like there's some masks that look cool, but as soon as you breathe in, you ain't getting any air. There's other masks that are just like, I feel like I'm cheating because I can freely breathe through this.
Yeah.
But if you have it on for a long period of time, I'm not trying to go on the flight, can't breathe, pass out, and then wake up at my destination. It's just like you gotta kind of weigh it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I bought one of those neck gaiters, and my wife is like, those aren't like necessarily like, it doesn't have like the proper layers to like really. So it's like, you're wearing a mask, but like if particles can go out or in, then that's like freely can go in or out. Like it's like, you can breathe, but like, you're gonna be able to breathe in.
So it's kind of, so it's actually, so I guess you experience the all day mask, because I've done that, like when I wake up, put on a mask, and then like end of the night, midnight, taking that. That's like it hurts because it's pulling on your ears, on the back of your ears start to hurt. You may get a little bit of a headache. So I mean, if you're in a position, where you're gonna be wearing a mask for an extended period of time, get a comfortable one. Make sure, the cloth masks still work. But it's kind of interesting too, because there's like a new like market for masks, which is
because I know like a lot of places now are only accepting, they're no longer accepting makeshift mask anymore.
That's true too.
It has to be like a surgical mask, or if you're flying, it has to be a surgical mask.
You saying that, my wife's friend, she was trying to fly back, and she had one of those masks that had like the little, I guess, small filter, and they told her that she couldn't use that mask. That wasn't like approved for flying, which is I didn't hear about that before. So I don't know if you've heard that before, Glenn, but I was surprised to hear.
So like the best way for people to know is like check the guidelines to wherever you're flying to, or the airline, like all that CDC and COVID information should be available through the provider or the carrier, and wherever you're traveling, and it'll give you a heads up as far as what to wear and things like that. So
I mean, one thing I also noticed is like Max is like, it's like buying a new shoe. You gotta like wear them out a little bit. I think after you wear them a few times, they really get more comfortable. Because I know like when I first traveling, I was doubling up, and I realized I was struggling for those flight. And then I just, I was like, you know what, I'm about to just make it just one of them, because I couldn't breathe. It was really difficult. So but whenever you have one good one that actually really that you feel comfortable wearing, just kind of stick to it.
Yeah, just think of it like condoms for your face. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my God. Like,
Essentially,
Would you just wear
you
any
know,
condoms?
like
the
it
real
can be like a
Magnum.
shirt.
I
It
need
can
that
be
Magnum,
like
son. I need that
socks.
Magnum.
It
I need
could
that
be
Magnum
like
mask.
some normal shit.
No,
No.
Selassie's right, because it is
This is-
protection.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need gold wrapper.
I mean, but like if
you
you're wearing a
mask,
shirt or
man.
wearing like a long sleeve shirt in the desert, doesn't it protect your arms and the rest of your body? There is clothing that protects you against elements, like a coat.
We're talking about the feed. We're talking about the feed.
You're talking about raincoats, man. You feel me?
Oh my
And
God.
get that condom for your face.
So
Save
anyway,
your
so
life.
when I was talking about the mask,
Uh,
like I don't know if anybody's seen this. I just sent it to you guys, the Project Hazel. Like that, like so there's like it's the world's first smart mask. It has like LEDs in it, it got Bluetooth in it, it got speakers in it. I mean, that's like it
Anything
look
to
mad
upsell.
comfortable. I don't know if I'd buy it, but
Oh
It
man.
looks like one of those, like, you know, those masks that make you feel like you're in different altitudes. That's what a lot of people started wearing, and they're now they're being turned around. Like those altitude altering masks are not good, but this looks crazy.
Yeah, this one looks cool. I like that you could like see the person's mouth, because that's the other thing that's been like weird with this whole thing is like you can't tell when like someone's smiling
you
at you or you're
smiling?
smiling. So I kind of
the
like that
mask
one
smile
that
where
you
you just see the eyes just get thinner. Like
It's hard to tell.
yeah, this one's cool. It looks like you can see the person's mouth, so that's kind of a cool.
yeah, so that's like that's what I said. It's definitely a new business there, but you know, I just say like again, just make sure you just get the. I mean, you don't need a fancy mask as long as it's comfortable. The ones if it's really more about just behind your ears. Just to address that point, it's more about surface area. The smaller the item, at a continuous level of force, then all that force is, focused into one point. And that's why it hurts when you have a string versus a band. So having a mask where it's like more of a band at the back, that will put less pressure on your ears because the force will be distributed. Anyway,
good nuggets of knowledge.
So those are ideal. The ones that like kind of go behind your head opposed to behind your ears.
Well, yeah, you're moving the pressure from the behind your ear to your head, so that's already a win. But even if it goes behind the ears, instead of a string, anything with more cloth, more material means more surface area, so the pressure is going to be distributed more evenly.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. Duran.
You know what? You're welcome. I won't even take that as sarcasm.
I wasn't sarcasm. That was like legit. Like, thanks for the tidbit, you dick.
Okay, my bad.
Oh my God.
All right, so close it out. If you had to start all over with the knowledge you have now, what would you do anything different? And if so, what would it be?
I'll go
I'll
first.
reference what Dre said with all previous podcasts. I will buy Bitcoin. No,
I would have bought it. I would have started a damn toilet paper company. That's what toilet paper and bidet company. That's what I would have done pre-pandemic. Is I definitely would have filled my whole garage with toilet paper, and I would have been trapping toilet paper. But it would have been my it would have been. But I guess all seriousness, I don't know. I really don't know if there's necessarily anything differently. I think I probably would have like invested in some better mask earlier on. Would probably be the only thing different. I think looking back, I probably was a little too like worried about stuff, and I probably should have like eased up a little bit, but I feel like that's like what made me like feel in control, where I feel like we didn't have any control. So I think that would probably be the only thing differently I would have done, is maybe just tried to do a little bit more things earlier on. I feel confident now, kind of going out and doing stuff, but early on, I was definitely like, we're not leaving the house unless it's grocery or like emergency. So that's probably the only thing I would have slightly done differently is just went out a little bit more and not been so much of a victim of being so scared that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, like I guess during COVID, I had a pretty good COVID I'm not sure if I would change a lot because I was able to like travel to a few places, and I did kind of invest actually more during COVID than I typically did. And I guess if there's one thing I would change is my wife and I would have actually traveled for a longer time span and maybe travel to like a location for like a month at a time and work from that location. And instead of going for maybe from Thursday to Sunday or Thursday to Monday and fly back home. So I think it would be nice without having and bring our dog and just kind of chill and get to enjoy the work from home life a little bit better. So we kind of talked about that. We wish we took advantage of it even more than we did. So that's, I guess, the only thing.
I guess let's say on my end, just to give you some insight, I was definitely that person that bought the bread books and baked his own bread, got the at-home gym. Like I did all of that. And the one thing I wish I was a little bit more aggressive on was on the market, because in March, we had stocks at prices that were like extreme lows in 2020, that if you just held way more positions now, you'd be making a little bit of bank. So that's like looking at the positive end of, COVID in a way. It got a lot of people onto platforms to invest, which is ultimately better for the country, especially our communities as well. So gathering that independence, and that really kind of jump-started that sense of prioritizing your well-being in all facets, whether that's financial, spiritual, mental, physical, like just get right. So I just wish I'd use that time a little bit more to just be a little bit more aggressive, but I'm pretty happy. And I second Francis on that as well. Like there were countries that were extending travel visas to citizens to stay there for extended period of time. So I was working virtually. I would have loved to have been in like the Bahamas or Barbados or something like that working virtually. But, it was also during the peak of COVID. So you just have to assess your risk. But, those are my only takeaways as far as what I would have done differently.
Yeah, so for me, done differently, I don't know. I guess, just on the stock market aspect, it did go kind of crazy, and I did kind of capitalize on that opportunity. Unfortunately, it's not, it's not good to kind of capitalize on people's hardship, but sorry, it's just the way I kind of look at it. But for me, it's very difficult because it's hard it's not something you plan for, it's not something that you can kind of be prepared for. Obviously, you want to take I feel like we should always just do the best public service that we can, and again, just do our parts, obviously, again, washing your hands, cleaning up behind yourself, not being slob, not being that person, it puts it a little bit more in focus, because I'm not going front. Sometimes I may, wash something and not necessarily clean my hands afterwards, or I didn't necessarily, did I count 30 seconds? Did I count 30 seconds as I washed? Did I scrub vigorously? I think again, that's the part that, I just wish that if I somehow did contribute, in a larger scheme, God forbid I haven't, I wish that, I could have told my older self to be a little bit more careful and more cautious and more, concerned with, how his actions impact other people.
So what would have you done differently?
I would have wore a biohazard suit more frequently. No, honestly, it's very difficult because there's not really much you can do differently to prepare.
So like I think you missed the question. So the question is, with the knowledge you have now and everything that's going on, if you had half this knowledge now in the beginning of COVID, what would you have done with that knowledge?
I guess I don't know. I honestly don't know, because with the information, I have now, is just, okay, now we know about, okay, like the size of a droplet. Is it droplet? Is it particle? Like the size of the molecule? Like those are things that that come with gradual discovery. So I don't really know how to. I don't know how to answer that one.
You made it more complicated than it has to be. Anyway,
Well, that's what I do.
I mean, like, it was as simple as like
you don't got to
like,
answer. It's all right.
Yeah, obviously not. You just move forward. Honestly, me, I echo what everyone else says besides Dr. Diron because I'm just lost. I would have not monitored my emails so heavily and would have went out with the family more. Like, okay, even though we can't go to the store, we can't do this. Let's just go outside for a walk. Let's actually enjoy it. There's no one on the road, like nobody. Like you're leaving what used to be peak traffic hours. Let's just go somewhere, walk around where no one's there, and actually enjoy sightseeing. I can look at buildings, I can look at statues, and take my time. It's not crowded, it's not rushed. Like I can actually enjoy all of that. So that's what I would take, knowing now like how everything is starting to come back. But taking this knowledge and moving it back, then it's just like, yo, I would have done so much, not even traveling, just seeing the local stuff that's around me is still amazing. And it's taking advantage of that because I don't have to wait in line to go do something. Like it's automatically there. Am I going to get the full view of it? Probably not, but it's good enough to take pictures and say, hey, I was in front of this monument or this statue where normally it's crowded and it's just me and my family. And that's a dope picture. Because I don't have to get up early in the morning. I don't have to get there late at night. It is noon on a Tuesday or noon on a Saturday where it's super busy and no one's here. So that's my takeaway from it. That's what I would change. I did everything else, but that right there will build a story for a lifetime. And when you look back on it, it's just like I've done everything I possibly could to enjoy the silver lining in this horrible situation.
Yeah. So yeah, just to piggyback off Chunky. So maybe just my understanding of the question is a little bit different too. But as a result of COVID, it has definitely forced me to not forced, but encouraged me to emphasize family and the people close to me more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even within my employees and stuff like that. Like there's people who have literally left, the companies that I worked with because of the fact that, they realize, hey, all I do is work 24/7. I've never prioritized my family. Like I've lost someone close to me. I need to focus on the people that remain, So if anything, if that better answers the question, I think that for me, it's definitely put more of an emphasis on, my partners, people in this podcast. That's actually, kind of part of like what encouraged us to do the podcast because we were so separated. And then also like just more, being more cognizant of my family members, my parents, my sisters, and all those around me, putting more emphasis into them.
Yeah, it definitely put everything into perspective a little bit more for me as well, right? So obviously we live in California. A lot of my family's still on the East Coast, definitely a lot more phone calls, a lot more group chats, a lot more connection has been that's one of the really good things I guess has come out of all this, at least for me personally, is just being a lot more closely connected to people and not just like making the assumption of like, yeah, we're going to see each other soon, right? They're just not making those assumptions, like really going out of your way to have that extra phone call, write that email, jump on FaceTime, all those things. I think there has been a lot of good, at least for me personally, in some of my relationships with people, kind of just getting a lot closer, even if we're not physically seeing each other, but just connecting in all the other ways.
My last tidbit, I would have gained all this damn weight if I had known. like my last piece, I'm like 195 at 5'11", 10-ish. And it's like, yo, bro, I have no business. I was training for a competition before COVID and just like Amsterdam and Paris thrown out the window. But I wouldn't have gained all this damn weight. That's what I've known. I would have kept eating healthy, didn't splurge as much. That kind of put me in like, oh, I gotta eat everything that I can.
We're gonna go hibernate.
Yo, that's real, man.
All the aki, you had to eat all the aki and sawfish.
It was like pizza, burgers, pizza,
bro.
Pizza. It was like, yo.
I mean, it's an excuse.
I struggle with that too.
Steak, shrimp, lobster.
COVID weight it's real. So let's just hopefully get back on track. Things are a little bit better. No one's gonna blame you back in the day, like, oh man, you put on weight. It's like now it's understandable. Like, hey, like it happens. figure it out. Just get healthy again.
Man,
But
for me, I had the COVID weight and the first year marriage weight. It was just, it's like you get combined it two. It's just like, I was doing so well initially, then I just kind of lost it at the end.
Just get back on the wagon. You'll be all right. No one blames you.
Yeah,
For more content or to learn more about the podcast, feel free to check us out at Jerk Jollof Collard Pod at Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro coming up right after this to learn additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, or subscribe. Like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on your preferred streaming platform of choice. See you all again next week.
Peace.
Peace out.
Be safe out there.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.